a member of the Old Colony Club for, probably about 20 years. And although I haven't been down there too much in the last 2 years because we meet on the top second floor of a old factory building, and it's basically really a 3-story climb. And with my arthritic knees, it makes it a little bit tough. And so some of the pictures are a little bit dated. I'm meaning to get down there to get more current pictures and also a new video. What I'm going to do is show a series of images from the club, some of the work that we've been doing, and then I have a couple videos. And then if we have time, I actually will show a couple pictures from my layout down the basement, which I've been working on for probably 25 years. And several times it's gotten taken down for storage space and been rebuilt, and it usually builds back better. And I work on that mostly in the winter time because spring, summer, and fall, I do a lot of photography. And so can you all see my screen with the title slide?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now let's get started and hope this works. Where'd my mouse go? Oh, there it is. Okay, the Old Colony Model Railroad Club is at 770 Broadway in Raynham. That's just off 495, and was founded by 2 still active members in 1990. The room we rent in the old Raynham Barrel Factory was a former site of a furniture store, so there's plenty of space to set up a layout in our 50 by 50 foot suite. The members decided to model the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad in a time period post-war era, World War II. In this time period, we can run steam, diesel, locomotive power. However, members can run their own non-specific equipment anytime we're not engaged in a group operating session. Often you'll see Amtrak running around or CSX, and I like steam, although it's a pain to work with because it's always derailing. Our rail is mostly Atlas Code 83 track and switches on cork and vinyl roadbed. There is Code 100 in the staging yard. Our minimum curve is 34-inch radius on the main line and 25-inch radius on the branch line. In 2008, we changed the layout from analog DC system to DCC. We currently run NCE. The layout goes from Providence to New Haven with a branch line through Willimantic. The staging yard, accessed via a tunnel, is considered New York City. Here's a picture of in 1990 when we started the layout. You can see as we're building the different parts of the layout with the different, this over here is Providence, and then this is going to be the future Willimantic, and they have a operating pit that comes this way. Most of our operating pits walk-ins come down this way. We don't have any duck unders. This area here, in the back is the future Providence, and this here is the you can see the branch line up here, which will be Willimantic, and then we have the double track main line from Providence down to New Haven. And at this point, there's no backdrop or anything, but it's I guess you'd call that cookie cutter, I believe, because it's not really L girder. Well, it's a combination of both. Now here it is about 2 years ago. You can see this is taken from right up by the ceiling, and you can see New Haven in the distance here. This is areas New London, and I have some better pictures of New London when Scott Wilkins, one of our master builders, finished it. You can see the branch line up above and the main line running around this way. The branch line, for the most part, is a single track, while the main line is a double track main line. And here's from another angle to show the entrance into Providence, and you can kind of see the Providence Yard out to the right-hand side. And most of our aisles are pretty much 3 feet wide. although there's a couple tight spots over by New Haven and on the far side where the yard is. It's only about 1.5 feet, and only one person can be in there at a time. We ran out of space. We have several master builders in the club who do a fantastic job on buildings and scenery. However, we encourage everyone, no matter their level of expertise, to build buildings and scenery. We have a building permit system so that we don't end up with people working on an area and suddenly somebody jumps in on top of us and starts changing it. The permit system is applied for and then presented to the entire membership and approved. We had somebody a few years ago, I think he went to the Providence Northern after we asked him to leave. I kicked him out. He was trying to backdate our layout to the early 1920s. He was taking cars off and rolling stock off and putting his own stuff on. He's hopefully trying to just get us back to what he wanted to model. And that was one of the reasons we put in the building permit system. So everybody has to go up to the membership, present what they want to do, explain why they want to do it, and then we vote on it, and then they can start working on it. And that way also, unless if somebody wants to change it, they have to talk to the permit holder, and they will say, yes, it sounds like a good idea, or no, forget it. This is our Providence Yard, and we have a engine service facility over here, as well as several places to drop box cars, and then a place with truck ramps. And the main line is on the right-hand side, runs completely around behind the Providence Yard, and then comes back out again. And in the distance, you can see what we consider New York. That's our staging yard back there. Another shot from the other angle of the Providence Yard, and you can see the detailing starting to begin. And in the distance, you can see where our meeting room is and the entrance to the club. But I like the layout because there's a lot of switching. My own personal layout, I have 75 switches, not a single electric or remote switch in the bunch. And you can see all the different rolling stock we have, and even the steam. So you're always going to see steam and diesel on the layout at the same time. A close-up of what Scott Wilkins, one of our master builders, did for the truck dock in Providence. Keep losing my mouse because I changed the color on it. This is where the entrance to the Providence Yard and then the exit from it comes out in from the right. And in the background, you can see a track here going into another bridge. That's actually where it splits out to the branch line. And then the branch line follows around all the way till you get to New Haven. This is a power plant that one of our members built on the branch line. And if you'll see some of our scenery in the background there, and I'll explain a little more about that in a moment. But there's still a lot of work to be done, a lot of areas that are still bare, but we're slowly, through our permit system, putting together different areas that have a lot of detailing. And as I said, we can run, when there's no operating session, you can run anything you want. Here, a big boy is passing a CSX. And so you can just use your imagination. And this area here is westerly. And then up above is the end of the Willimantic. Now, on the backdrop, you can see the hills and mountains. What happened was we were about to lose our lease to our space. And so our president at the time said, guys, just go have fun, do what you want. And I decided I wanted to paint the backdrop because they just had a blue backdrop with an occasional cloud. And so I spent a couple of weeks, and it's a little bit more mountainous than Eastern Connecticut, but I do good mountains. And the rolling hills, you know, I just like the mountains, mountain background anyway. And so far, nobody's really complained, except sometimes they do say, I've never seen mountains like that in Eastern Connecticut. The following pictures are going to be like an evolution of an area, how we put together the Culling Yard and the Viaduct on the branch line. On the main line between Providence, New York, there was an area that had limited potential for buildings, but could still be made into a showpiece. We had a lot of vertical scenery, and several people had complained about we have virtually nothing but vertical scenery. But I decided to see if I could make it interesting beyond the usual rock walls. I decided to scratch build a viaduct for the upper branch line and then paint the backdrop to match and give it a reason. On the level with the main line, one of our members built a coaling area. Now here's where I started building the viaduct. I took some foam and I created a mold for a rock wall. And it was about 4 inches by 6 inches. And then I just cast up a whole bunch of them. And then also made other castings and cut them out so that I'd have the arches and a couple arches for a stream to go through. It became one big piece, about 3 feet long. Well, maybe. And in the background, you can see Robert's printing right, scratch built it. I cut it down to make it smaller to fit our layout there. And here's where I started putting in the viaduct. We built a couple hills on either side of it. And then I painted the backdrop into like a valley that just disappears off into the distance. That way you have a reason why you had to have the viaduct come in here. And then from another angle, you can see that we got a little bit larger hill. The branch line runs around the hill, while the main line underneath here goes through a tunnel and comes out in westerly. And so you can see how it slowly evolved. You can see where I, kind of built it into the rocks there. And here's the Culling Yard with a lower angle, and you can still see how the viaduct just can be very imposing there, which actually works out very well. And the member that did the Culling Yard, I'll get to that in a second. This is to show another angle of the viaduct, and notice how the valley, because of the angle of the picture, suddenly became a lot steeper. The member, when he did the Culling Yard, put a little trestle here and has 2 tracks opposite, next to the main line as a fun little area to switch. And you can see some of the detail that he put into the Culling Yard here, including lighting up the inside of the boxcar and so on. And you can see this area is one of the few areas where we have a lot of telephone wires. Then this is the work that Scott Wilkins had done on New London, which on the overhead view had just the main building there without even a roof on it. He put in a ton of small figures and stuff, and he actually has a story going on because there's cameras, TV crews, and a movie star coming down the ramp. And so it gave a little bit of more action to the scene. And here's another angle to show the detailing that the amount of vehicles and things like that he did, as well as the nice weathering job he did on the tanks and so on. And here you can see the branch line up above with a sand and gravel plant, and still see all the detail in New London. Here we're entering, showing from the backside of New Haven, The main line goes, we don't even see the main line at this point. It goes down at the bottom here and goes into the New Haven Yard in the background. I'll talk more about this trestle in a little while. We have a produce area with 4 tracks coming into this produce area. And then there's a track that comes off the branch line down into the New Haven Yard. Here's the produce area. It's still not completed at this point, at least 2 years ago. And some of the buildings were, okay, we had buildings, let's make use of them somehow. And you can see more of the backdrop, which I'm kind of proud of. And then we have a beer, as part of the New Haven area, we have a beer distributor and a couple of manufacturing plants. And what you're seeing up above here is the branch line as it swings around to go down into the New Haven Yard. And another view of that from that same area, here's the brewing company, the factories in New Haven, the roundhouse right here with a turntable behind it. And the branch line at this point is a double track, and then it goes back to single track. That's basically a passing track. And we have a New Haven station here that serves both the branch line and the main line.
Jeff, can we interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
While we get Steve's attention, can he silence Nicole? Getting a lot of background noise. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Working on that.
Okay, so then every good train layout has to have a junkyard. Makes it interesting and get rid of some old trains and stuff. And one of our members who passed away before I joined the club had built this junkyard and did a really good job on it. And again, it just makes another interesting point of interest. The branch line on our layout is known as the Airline. This was the actual designation given to the line from Providence through Willimantic and down to New Haven. It went through very hilly areas of eastern Connecticut. We modeled the town and railroad area around Willimantic, as well as East Hampton, known as Belltown. The branch line, when it comes into New Haven, is on an elevated railway, scratch built by a former member. And down here, you can see where the branch line comes off of, when we're coming out of Providence, it splits off through this bridge and goes around behind to head up to Willimantic, or you can come down this little siding track down under a tunnel and out into an area here where there is a dock for boats and a couple industries. And you can, in the background here, there's an icing plant on the main line, and you can see the branch line continues on up into Willimantic. And you see, here's the single track branch line going up, and it starts climbing, while the main line just continues around on the flat. The Willimantic, one of our members on a building permit built the entire town of Willimantic. That's where the Roberts printing ended up again. And up here, we have the buildings in Willimantic. This one here, this stone building is using the same castings that I used for the viaduct, but I cut windows in every single casting, which took forever. And it's held up very well, and it's got a roof made out of paper from Model Builder software. And then we have a couple more scratch-built buildings here with a 4-track yard and the station in Willimantic. We have street running in downtown Willimantic feeding the paper plant, Roberts Printing. And Then we have the IRS building here burned out. And then from the other angle, you can see the street railway back there. You can see the main street of Willimantic, and Star Wars is playing at the theater. The Willimantic Yard with the scratch-built buildings shows a lot of truck traffic in the background. Right then, there were no trees here at all. And so I knew that area needed to be done with trees. So I'll get that in the next thing, but you can see there's an oil dock here. There's like a 4-track yard here. So there's, again, plenty of ability for switching. And you can see how Westerly has been built up down on the main line. And you can see the backdrop. We did use super trees to build all these trees here. And there's a little graveyard down in this area. You can't see it too well. And to hide the post here, just put the like building flats around it to kind of hide it to some degree. Then on the branch line, we have the sand and gravel plant, which again is another area that you can switch out. Is just beyond the viaduct. And you can't really see it up here, but occasionally you'll see an occasional figure up on top of one of the hills. We put some whimsical, funny figures up there for people to try to find. And then still on the branch line, we get into Belltown. And again, just another switch. This one I said, let's put something in there. It's hard to reach. You have to go around and work at it from the other side of the layout. But it is a place, the more switching, the better. And this building here is another paper building. I built this, now the roof is removable to get at the inside, and somebody didn't put it back on. I didn't notice it when I took the picture. But this was built using my computer and my printer with Model Builder software. And I put it all on cardstock and then glued it all, or actually I think it was foam core, and glued it all together, built the inside. And it gives you ability to have buildings on your layout that nobody else does. And you can build all kinds of interesting things. Mostly I use it for small sheds and things like that. And then next to that paper building, we have a burnt out factory and a rusty old box car on a abandoned siding. And it was an area that you couldn't switch. We couldn't throw a switch in there. And I said, let's make it have a reason for there being a space there. And so it's just another little interesting photo op. And then one of our main members in an area where you cannot get at from very easily at all, built kind of a abandoned line. This is above the branch line, and a trestle behind it. So it's just really for scenery purposes only. And this is the branch line coming into New Haven, and you'll notice the trestle here. One of our members had built the trestle so that the branch line went right over top of it, and you could still have detailing underneath. And it's kind of a unique feature. Now I have a couple of videos that I did on the Old Colony Club. The first is a complete mainline run from New Haven to New London to pick up a load, and then to Providence and a return to New Haven. And then the second video is switching tank cars in the yard at Willimantic. Any questions before I continue? Okay, this is the video of the run on the main line from New Haven to Providence and back, and takes in the entire main line, and I hope everybody enjoys it. Oh, turn this on. And here we are going through the yard at New Haven. And on the left, you're going to see the turntable in a second, just barely get a shot of it. And then we have another small extension on the yard because we had a huge yard before, and we wanted to have a turntable and roundhouse. And so we ended up making almost like a double yard. So this part of the yard is used for, ignore that train just sitting there on the side. It'll be like passenger equipment and so on. And now we're swinging around the brewery inside in New Haven. And we're then going to be going under a bridge and approaching the train station. And if you look real sharp, you'll be able to see sometimes the switches are thrown against me and it looks like it still went through them. And we have, some detailing underneath the, for the passenger platform. And then that building there is the post office. And you can see the junkyard. And now we're heading over a crossing and through New Haven and then out around onto the main line. And what I did with these is I pushed a flat car ahead of me with a miniature camera on it. And the cameras, where did I put it? I had it, I cleaned my desk. I've got one up here. I don't know if you still can see, I'll show it later. I don't know if you can still see me on the screen with all the people on it, but I used a miniature keychain camera to put it on a flat car. And this is going through one of our tunnels here. And we're now approaching New London. The plexiglass is to keep people, or when visitors come over, from knocking things over. And going through the train station. And there's more tunnels than there are in Connecticut and Rhode Island. But you have to do something with the branch line. Now we reverse direction, and we're now going to go into New London to pick up a couple, actually 3 boxcars. And the nice thing about the keychain camera is you can get them really low down to the level of the trains. You can see our workshop in the background there for a split second. I don't do all the horn signals the way we should. We had one member who was very vehement about switching direction or anything. You have to do all the proper horns. We can actually get aggravating after, or annoying after a bit. We're going to go now and go up, pull down, and then get into and get our other 2 boxcars. And they're at the, I forget what that building is supposed to be. In fact, I just call them factory buildings. And you can see the track's not exactly stable, or at least for the camera anyway. And then we'll go back out onto the main line. And normally you just go from New London back to New Haven because it's not that far. But because I wanted to show the entire main line, so we're going to take a run all the way around by Providence. And I always liked the chain link fence that the guy did. I'm not sure if that was a kit or whether he did it himself. There's the workshop in the background. Now, usually you can't work that area from the eastbound side of the main line. There is a switch here between the two, but there's not one going back again at this point. So I just did some artistic interpretation and got it onto the proper track. And you see the viaduct and some buildings up in an area that's not been worked on yet. And we're gonna, this area tunnel goes completely under the branch line and gets us around and into Westerly. You can see there was another track in that tunnel right over to the left was where it went to New York to the staging yard. Doesn't do me any good to point because you can't see what I'm pointing at. I do have the mouse, so I could point out different things. This area here, which is westerly in a couple of the pictures, is more built up than when I made the video. And so that's what I said, have to do an updated video at some point. And we're about to come out here along the shoreline. And as we come out of the tunnel, we'll be above a beach area where the train runs right along the beach and past a lighthouse. And here you can show this was still under construction because we still had the paper on the plexiglass. Now you can see we're about to pass the icing dock or ice plant, where they have some box cars getting iced up, and then a coach yard on the right-hand side where we stage our passenger trains. And the inside of that switch tower is totally detailed. That's how we run most of the switches. We reach inside there and throw them. But then you can see the branch line up above in the background there. And the power plant. And then we're making the big swing to head towards the bridges going into Providence. We're kind of on a hot shot here, moving right along. And now we're coming around, and here's the bridges. The bridge on the left is the branch line. This is the main line to Providence. And that's me in the background there. And then we make the turn. We're going to go right past the Providence Railroad Station. Which I don't know if we can see it on the left. Yeah, there it is. That's the Providence Station. And then we're going to run right alongside the main yard in Providence. And you can see there's still a lot of areas that have places that people can do some scenery and building and so on. And so it's still a growing club. We have about 18 members and have to pay for the rent and heating and everything. And we're just passing one of the switches that went to this other engine facility there. And then we're going to, making a turn here, there's a switch where you could go to the branch line right there, but we're going to go back onto the main line and reverse our direction back to New Haven. And we'll see the layout from a different angle. And for the most part, most of the roadbed is ballasted. There are areas that are not, although they are now. And this gives a little bit, there's the switch tower again. A little bit better shot of the icing platform. And you can see Willimantic up above. And one good thing, we're not going to drop the cars back at New London, and we're just going to end them in New Haven so we don't have to go through that again. Now, a lot of times in the wintertime, we'll have a lot of problems with rail, and in the summer, with rail expansions and stuff. Hasn't been too bad, not like on my home layout, which seems to get it worse. Oh, you just saw one of the switch motors. We use tortoise switch machines on virtually all the turnouts, except that just a few have manual throws. And we have a order board on the wall. Here's the viaduct again as we come past the Culling Yard. And into the tunnel to get to, you just saw one of the little jags in the track from rail expansion, going back through New London at high speed. You can see all the figures that they put in there. And then there's a little siding that goes into that industry in New London from a different angle, through another tunnel, out into, I forget what we called this area. Don't really remember. And there's a milk dairy, and that tunnel there goes to New York. And there's another way to the staging yard on the far wall behind the branch line. So you can get to the staging yard from two different directions. And that's the beginning of the, becomes a trestle. And we're coming right back into the New Haven yard. And coming in at the end of the day to park the train. And you can see this area isn't ballasted yet. It's going to be a lot of work to do the yard. And that's basically it on the main line run. Then what I did is I did a short video of switching out a couple tank cars in the Willimantic yard. And I would tend to assume that people would want to see this, and I'm watching the time at the same time. We've got about 10 minutes where I think we can do this and then do a real quick couple pictures of my home layout, but not do the video for the home layout. So here's the, you notice we're again doing steam a lot of times, but we still have a typical New Haven beat up switcher. And this is an area where originally they had just 2 tracks with like a passenger platform in between them. And we decided it would look better to have a yard there and give more switching opportunities. And it was something that a friend of mine and I had to really fight to get it done, because they liked the 2 tracks, but I think it works so much better having a fair amount of switching. There's another paper building in the background here. And you can see the scenery really adds to the, give it a little bit of depth. I just threw the fireman right through the front of the cab because I stopped awful quick. Now to switch the oil cars, you have to move anything that's spotted at the factory. Now you can see one of the switches right over there. In the yard here, they have manual switches rather than the electric switches. Now I think, if I remember right, I go down, pick up the other box tank car, bring it back to spot and pick up the other one, and then swap them out. I think, I don't remember. Or maybe I was getting rid of the box car. It's been years since I did this video. Again, this area has not been ballasted at that time. And you see how we don't have much room because of the tracks on the other side of the layout are right behind that divider. I know what I was doing. I was dropping the boxcar. Somebody had detailed our little swamp area down in here. Some old tires and things, junk just lying there. And we do have a fast clock on one of the walls. The clock up above there, though, is an actual time clock as opposed to a fast clock. And we use the KD couplers on all the rolling stock and engines. And that oil tank there, I built out of actually PVC and sections, just cut them and fitted them together. But then bought the ladder, but the piping, I just used some flashing from some ship models I had. I kind of like this scene right here because of the hills in the backdrop. I'm wondering where we're about 5 of 11 right now. Should I end this early and just show a couple pictures of my home layout and then ask for questions, then you can go on to the next presentation? You're on mute.
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay, why don't we do that? Because I was just gonna take some time and swap out the two freight cars. Instead, what we'll do is, come on, get out. I think I would have to end it somehow. And let me go open up my other window, and then I can just jump to the next slide. Okay, we do have a website, ocmmrc.org, also .com. Both go to the same place, and that way you can always go and get more pictures of the layout, find out what we're doing, and so on. We have announcements for our train show, which we did not have this year.